Atlanta nights carry a rhythm of their own, but this night throbbed with something darker, heavier, and far more dangerous than anyone could have predicted. The city glowed under neon signs and street lamps, but beneath the shimmer, whispers were already forming that by sunrise would explode into trending headlines. Tamar Braxton had been rushed to the hospital, her face fractured, her teeth gone, her voice trembling as she admitted she almost died. For fans, this wasn't just another piece of gossip. It was a shocking image of a woman who was supposed to be untouchable, now bloodied, broken, and tied to names no one expected. Yandy Smith, Mendeecees Harris, Funky Deneva, and The Shadow. Atlanta never forgets cousin Kesha. The evening had begun with harmless glamour, at least on the surface. Tamar Braxton was radiant, draped in confidence and smiles as she sat across from her longtime friend Funky Deneva at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. To outsiders watching the little Instagram snippets that trickled online, the table looked like a celebration of friendship, clinking glasses, polished laughter, playful banter. But Atlanta knows better. In this city, perfection never stays perfect. A laugh can mask a war, and a glass of wine can be the prelude to blood on the pavement. What looked like dinner among friends was, in reality, the beginning of a night that would spiral into chaos and leave fans dissecting every move frame by frame. After dinner, Tamar Braxton and Funky Deneva slipped into V12 Lounge, a hotspot already pulsing with pounding bass and flashing lights. That's where the temperature shifted instantly. Standing inside, leaning back with his usual quiet arrogance, was Mendeecees Harris. His very presence was gasoline waiting for a spark. For years, his name has been tangled in whispers, cheating, betrayals, questionable loyalty. But his strategy has always been the same: silence. Let the storm swirl around him. Let women carry the drama. Let the blogs rage while he sits still. But this time, silence would not be enough because witnesses swear Tamar Braxton and Mendeecees Harris were far too close that night. Leaning in with their heads almost touching, voices lowered, hands brushing ever so slightly. It wasn't business, it wasn't casual. It was dangerous. And in Atlanta, danger has a way of drawing eyes. Where there is Mendeecees Harris, Yandy. Smith is never far behind. And when she walked into that lounge, the air shifted once more, this time with a weight that felt suffocating. Yandy Smith doesn't yell, she doesn't lunge, she doesn't waste her breath on theatrics. Her weapon has always been silence. Sharp, precise, strategic silence. Yet that silence carried more weight than 100 screams. Imagine the scene. Tamar Braxton laughing too loudly, basking in attention, sitting too close to Mendeecees Harris, as though she belonged there. And then Yandy Smith stepping into the room, flawless, calm, yet radiating a presence that burned hotter than any shout. The music blasted, but the real sound was the unspoken threat humming beneath her gaze. Tension shattered the air like glass. Some claim Tamar Braxton smirked first, playing it off as if nothing mattered. Others insist Yandy Smith walked straight toward her, ready to reclaim her territory with nothing more than a stare. Whatever the truth, the clash was inevitable. "You got a problem?" Witnesses recalled Tamar Braxton snapping, her voice slicing through the heavy bass line. "Do I?" Yandy Smith countered, her words steady, her tone even, but her eyes cutting with the force of blades. Every phone shot up, every drink froze on the table. Everyone in that lounge knew they were about to witness Atlanta carve another scandal into its messy history. And what of Mendeecees Harris? He stayed in character, leaning back, refusing to break his silence. It has always been his shield. Let the women torch each other while he stands untouchable, a man who survives chaos by pretending not to be part of it. But that night, his silence didn't protect him. It condemned him. Because Tamar Braxton isn't built for quiet. She got louder, throwing shade like darts. "You think you own him?" Witnesses claim she hissed, eyes flashing. And Yandy Smith, ever the strategist, let her silence burn hotter than words. The tension was unbearable, the energy in that room ready to split wide open. Then came the spark. Some say a glass flew. Others swear Tamar Braxton slammed one down, hard enough to send liquid spraying across the table. Some insist Yandy Smith shoved it aside. Whatever happened, chaos followed. Voices rose, the crowd pressed closer, and in the blur of lights, one name ripped through the atmosphere like thunder: cousin Kesha. To outsiders, it might have been a coincidence, but for Atlanta, it was confirmation. Fans knew the pattern. Whenever Yandy Smith needed the dirty work done, cousin Kesha was the one who surfaced. She was infamous since the Love and Hip Hop reunion, where she lunged at Samantha, the mother of Mendeecees Harris's child, in a moment fans still replay. So when whispers spread that she was in the lounge, when witnesses muttered about her figure moving through the chaos, the narrative was locked. It didn't matter if proof existed. In Atlanta, you don't need proof when you have reputation. And cousin Kesha's reputation was enough. Some swear they saw her swing. Others say she shoved. No camera caught it, no screenshot proved it, but the story didn't need validation. The streets spoke, and the streets said it was her. That alone turned a messy confrontation into something deadly. Funky Dineva was right there too, and while some say he tried to calm the fire, others insist he wore that knowing smirk, already, scripting how he'd retell the scene. Whatever his stance, the result was the same. Tamar Braxton ended up screaming as security dragged her through flashing lights. Yandy Smith standing flawless but seething, Mendeecees Harris unreadable in the corner, and Funky Dineva trapped somewhere between friend and commentator. The images burned themselves into memory, too raw to forget. By the time Tamar Braxton stormed out of V12 Lounge, hashtags were already climbing. Tamar vs Yandy, Mendeecees drama, Clash ATV12. TikTok edits hit timelines before she even made it home. Instagram flooded with speculation, Twitter cutthroat with theories. But no one expected what would come next. Hours later, Tamar Braxton shattered the internet with her own words. "I almost died. I woke up in a pool of blood, my nose fractured, my teeth missing, my memory gone." Those words weren't just a post, they were a confession of terror. The bold, unfiltered Tamar Braxton fans knew was suddenly silent, her strength swallowed by shock. The city froze. The blogs froze. Even her haters froze. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was blood. Tamar Braxton wasn't just dragged into drama, she was dragged into the hospital. And the timing was too precise, too sharp to be dismissed as coincidence. She clashed with Yandy Smith. She sat too close to Mendeecees Harris. She left with Funky Dineva. And then she woke up broken. Accident? Fate? Or revenge carved into silence? Because in Atlanta, silence is never empty. Yandy Smith's silence is her crown, her chessboard strategy. Mendeecees Harris's silence is his survival, tactic his camouflage, and Tamar Braxton, who has never been one to hold her tongue, was suddenly silent. That silence rang louder than any scream. When she turned up bloodied and broken, the internet didn't call it an accident. They called it revenge. And once more, the shadow of cousin Kesha loomed large. The streets spoke, the hashtag screamed, and the silence of those involved felt heavier than words. And through it all, one face kept appearing in the middle: Funky Dineva. The man who had been there from dinner to the lounge to the car, the man who could have clarified the chaos, the man who could have defended his friend. But when the moment came, he didn't sound shocked, he didn't sound broken. He laughed. He turned the blood into a punchline, flipping the narrative into comedy, making himself the star of a tragedy that wasn't his. Fans didn't laugh with him, they turned on him. "How can you joke?" they demanded, when Tamar Braxton said she almost died. But Funky Dineva wasn't done. In one of his own videos, he revealed something chilling. The morning after the clash, Tamar Braxton had texted him. Her words were haunting. "I'm missing 4 teeth. Do you know a dentist?" 4 teeth, gone, in one night. And instead of rushing to her side, calling authorities, or even offering protection, Funky Dineva shrugged it off, laughed it away, and used it as content. To fans, it wasn't humor. It was betrayal. And while the internet tore him apart, another silence stretched on, unbroken and unnerving. The silence of Mendeecees Harris. If Mendeecees Harris had nothing to hide, fans argued, why did he stay silent when the entire internet was demanding answers? Why didn't he step forward to protect Tamar Braxton, clear his own name, or defend Yandy Smith? His refusal to say anything at all wasn't viewed as strength this time. It was seen as guilt. The silence that once looked like strategy now felt like a confession. And that is the danger of patterns. When you've built a reputation on staying mute while women burn around you, people don't wait for proof. They assume silence means truth. And that's exactly what happened. Fans filled in the blanks for him. They wrote his role in the scandal without needing his input, deciding that he was too close to Tamar Braxton that night, too comfortable, letting Yandy Smith do the dirty work, and too invested in survival to speak. Meanwhile, Yandy Smith played her part like a seasoned strategist. While the internet boiled, while hashtags trended, while blogs spun every version of events, she curated perfection online. Family photos, business promotions, smiles that didn't falter, captions that oozed calm. To her followers, it was proof that she wasn't fazed, but to her critics, it was even more proof of guilt. That's her pattern, they wrote. She never screams, she never rants, she just lets the streets talk and lets her cousin's reputation do the work. The fact that she didn't address Tamar Braxton directly only fanned the flames. It was as if she wanted the silence to play for her, knowing full well the internet would assume cousin Kesha had pulled up once again, and the name cousin Kesha rang louder than anything else. She didn't post, she didn't confirm, she didn't even deny. She didn't have to. Her presence existed in reputation alone, and that reputation was enough to turn every fan theory into a conviction. They remembered the reunion fight. They remembered her lunging across couches and charging past security. They remembered how Yandy Smith never lifted her hands but always had Kesha by her side. So when Tamar Braxton woke up battered, bloody, and missing teeth, nobody questioned if Kesha was there. They simply decided she was. TikTok creators reenacted her shadow storming the club. Twitter users captioned photos of Yandy Smith with warnings like, "Don't touch her man unless you're ready to see Kesha." And Instagram fan pages flooded with memes that turned a rumor into fact. Through it all, Funky Deneva only made the situation worse. Instead of stepping back or showing concern, he doubled down on comedy. His parody wanted poster featuring himself as the suspect infuriated people. They weren't laughing, they were disgusted. Because Tamar Braxton wasn't just bruised. She was hospitalized, missing teeth, and publicly admitting she almost died. What friend makes jokes at that moment? To fans, his comedy wasn't comedy, it was cover-up energy. And the most incriminating part was his own admission. That morning, text from Tamar Braxton, where she confessed she'd woken up missing 4 teeth. It wasn't a joke, it wasn't a skit, it was her reality. And Funky Deneva's decision to treat it as entertainment destroyed the little trust fans still had in him. The outrage didn't stop there. Bloggers dug deeper. Some claimed that by refusing to take her condition seriously, Funky Deneva was protecting more than his own brand. They speculated he was shielding Mendeecees Harris. Others swore he was covering for Yandy Smith. A few even suggested he was protecting himself, because being present at every stage of that night made him just as accountable. After all, he was with Tamar Braxton at dinner. He walked with her. Into V12 Lounge, he rode with her back to her home. If anyone could answer how she ended up injured, it was him. And yet, instead of answers, he gave jokes. That alone made him look suspicious. Fans began connecting dots the cast never expected them to. They remembered how Mendeecees Harris had a long history of letting women carry scandals while he floated above untouched. They pointed out that Yandy Smith's brand thrived on silence and deflection. They recalled how cousin Kesha was always the one whose name came up when things got physical. And now, Funky Deneva's laughter fit too perfectly into the puzzle. Every piece slid together like a script that didn't need confirmation from any of the players. The streets had already decided. Tamar Braxton got too close to Mendeecees Harris, Yandy Smith found out, cousin Kesha pulled up, and Funky Deneva turned the aftermath into a circus. The impact wasn't just gossip, it was cultural. On TikTok, creators didn't just reenact the night. They dramatized it into serialized clips. Tamar Braxton stumbling under flashing lights, Yandy Smith glaring from across the room, Mendeecees Harris sitting stone-faced in the corner, cousin Kesha charging through the chaos, and Funky Deneva cackling in the background. On Instagram, memes hit faster than the facts. One viral post showed Yandy Smith's face with the caption, "She don't argue with mistresses, she eliminates them. Another showed Tamar Braxton bruised alongside a shadowed silhouette labeled Kesha, the text reading, "She pulled up, end of story." Twitter, as always, was merciless. Some begged for compassion, saying no woman deserves to wake up broken. Others dragged Tamar Braxton relentlessly, calling her reckless, messy, and foolish for creeping with a married man. But, through all the noise, one truth cut deeper than anything else. The streets weren't calling this an accident. They weren't even calling it a fight. They were calling it revenge. And the longer Tamar Braxton stayed silent, the more powerful that narrative became. Because fans are used to her clapping back. They're used to her posting lives, going on rants, refusing to let anyone smear her name. But this time, nothing. Just one bloody post and a silence that seemed forced, heavy, unnatural. And that silence gave more power to the theory that she'd been silenced by force, whether through intimidation, fear, or worse. Meanwhile, production companies and media insiders whispered in their own corners. For a franchise built on drama, this was too real, too raw, too bloody to spin as content without backlash. But fans didn't see it as a show. They saw it as a cover-up. And that made it even more viral. Because when people believe the cast isn't just messy on screen but dangerous in real life, every headline becomes a warning. By the middle of the week, Atlanta wasn't whispering anymore. The story had gone national, reaching gossip blogs outside the love and hip-hop bubble. And every version carried the same four names: Tamar Braxton, Yandy Smith, Mendeecees Harris, and cousin Kesha. The internet wrote the verdict on its own. The official silence of the cast didn't kill the story. It fed it. Because in a city where silence is strategy, the streets always fill in the blanks. The longer Tamar Braxton remained silent, the more the silence itself became the story. Fans weren't waiting for receipts anymore. They had already created their own. Every blog, every gossip page, every fan edit carried the same narrative. Tamar Braxton crossed a line with Mendeecees Harris, Yandy Smith saw it, cousin Kesha handled it, and Funky Dineva turned it into a sideshow. The silence of all four wasn't protecting anyone. It was locking the theory in place. In Atlanta, when nobody speaks, the streets decide, and the streets had already ruled this was no accident. Behind the scenes, people whispered about what had really happened once Tamar Braxton left V12 Lounge. Some swore she went home with Funky Dineva, that he was the last person to see her before she collapsed. Others insisted she didn't make it home alone, that someone followed, that a confrontation carried over into the night. The truth was blurry, but the outcome was clear. By morning, she was bloodied, missing 4 teeth, her face fractured, her voice trembling in pain. And instead of stepping forward with concern, Funky Dineva laughed. Instead of clarifying, Mendeecees Harris stayed mute. Instead of defending her, Yandy Smith posted curated smiles. And instead of denying anything, cousin Kesha said nothing at all. That silence was deafening, and it left room for fans to craft a story far more dramatic than any reunion episode could ever deliver. On TikTok, reenactments became darker, sharper. Creators staged themselves waking up as Tamar Braxton, screaming into mirrors, holding ice packs to swollen faces, crying out about missing teeth. Others played Yandy Smith, standing unbothered while a shadow labeled Kesha stormed into frame. Some even dragged Mendeecees Harris, showing him sitting back, arms folded, letting the women destroy each other while he smirked. The comment sections were merciless. "He's been doing this for years," one wrote. "Every time he's accused, he stays quiet and lets women take the fall." Another replied, "This is not TV anymore, this is real life, and she almost died." On Instagram, the memes took a cruel turn. Photos of Funky Dineva with captions like, "Laughing while your friend is bleeding is not loyalty." Images of Yandy Smith polished and smiling, paired with lines like, "She doesn't argue, she strategizes." And endless silhouettes of cousin Kesha, her face blurred, her figure shadowed, always attached to captions that screamed, "Kesha pulled up." The repetition became reality. Fans didn't just suspect she was there, they were certain of it. Twitter was where the debates cut deepest. Some defended Tamar Braxton, saying she was a victim, that no one deserves to wake up in a pool of blood no matter the circumstances. Others dragged her with no mercy, labeling her reckless for allegedly creeping with another woman's husband, saying she knew what she was getting into. The divide wasn't just about loyalty, it was about morality. Was this a cautionary tale about crossing lines? Or was it proof of how far silence and strategy can go when a brand is being protected? And at the center of it all, Mendeecees Harris remained quiet. To some, that silence was survival. To others, it was an admission of guilt. If he was innocent, he'd speak, fans argued. If he didn't leave with her, why not prove it? If he loved Yandy Smith, why not protect her name? But his refusal to do anything at all looked like the same pattern he'd been accused of for years. Every scandal tied to his name ends the same way. The women carry the weight, and he survives, untouched. This time, though, fans weren't willing to let his silence slide. They dragged him mercilessly online, saying his refusal to speak was the clearest confession of all. But what made this scandal feel different from anything else was how blurred the line between reality television and real life had become. On Love and Hip Hop, chaos is expected. Drinks fly, voices rise, fights get dramatic edits and commercial breaks. But this wasn't scripted. This wasn't filmed for entertainment. This was blood, bruises, missing teeth, and hospital lights. And yet audiences consumed it the same way. They made edits, cracked memes, spun conspiracies. Tamar Braxton's pain became viral content. Yandy Smith's silence became a strategy fans admired and feared. Mendeecees Harris's muteness became proof of betrayal. Funky Deneva's laughter became the most viral clip of all. The true tragedy was how quickly the internet turned it into entertainment. A woman saying she almost died became the punchline of fan skits. A broken face became a trending hashtag. A silence that could have been born from trauma became proof of guilt. In Atlanta, scandals move fast, but this one moved like fire, unstoppable and scorching everything in its path. And through all of it, one name refused to fade. Cousin Kesha. She didn't appear on screen. She didn't post online, she didn't explain herself, but she didn't need to. Her shadow alone was enough. Her past actions were enough. Her silence was louder than any denial could ever be. Fans decided she was there, and once they decided, there was no undoing it. Every headline, every meme, every conversation included her name. Yandy Smith didn't have to say anything. Her cousin's reputation had already spoken for her. By the end of the week, the narrative was sealed. Tamar Braxton was broken and silent. Mendeecees Harris stayed mute. Yandy Smith stayed polished. Funky Deneva stayed laughing. And cousin Kesha stayed in the shadows, her name carried by fans who were convinced she was the enforcer behind it all. The streets had written the story in full, and the cast's silence had only solidified it. The haunting part was that no matter how many questions remained unanswered, who swung first, who followed who home, who actually laid the blow that broke. Tamar Braxton's face, the streets didn't care anymore. They had already chosen their truth. And in Atlanta, once the streets choose, the truth doesn't need proof. It lives on its own. That was the power of silence in this scandal. It wasn't just absence of words, it was the loudest confession of all. Yandy Smith's silence played like strategy. Mendeecees Harris's silence played like guilt. Tamar Braxton's silence felt forced and frightening, and Funky Deneva's laughter felt like betrayal. The combination was fatal for reputations, because when silence screams, it can't be unheard. And so, the verdict written not in courts, but in hashtags, not by producers, but by fans, was simple. Tamar Braxton crossed a line with Mendeecees Harris. Yandy Smith found out. Cousin Kesha pulled up. And Tamar Braxton ended in a hospital bed. Case closed.